Heads of state and government of Latin America and the Caribbean ratified their condemnation of the exclusion of several countries from the 9th Summit of the Americas by the United States government. Mourners, relatives, and human rights activists in Bolivia once again demanded justice to be done in the framework of the trial of the former de facto president Yanin Áñez. In Cambodia, the ruling People's Party won a victory in local elections held on Sunday. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador officially declared that he will not attend the 9th Summit of the Americas because of his conviction to respect the sovereignty of the countries.
About the summit, I am here to inform the people of Mexico that I will not attend. In my place, Marcelo Ebrard will go. And the reason why I won't go is simply because not all American countries have been invited. And I believe in the need to change the policy that has been imposed here for centuries. What I mean is the policy of exclusion and the policy of not respecting the sovereignty of different countries here in the continent.
And the Venezuelan civil society activists rejected the exclusion of several Latin American nations from the 9th Summit of the Americas promoted by the United States government. Citizens condemned the action during the anti-imperialist platform. The decision to cut out Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua followed weeks of intense deliberations and was due to alleged concerns about human rights and lack of democracy in the three nations. The participants also spoke out against U.S. interference while calling for unity in the region to respect each country's sovereignty and self-determination of the peoples. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, welcomed the decision of his counterpart in Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, of not to attend the Summit of the Americas, following the exclusion of several countries in the region from the multilateral event. In this regard, the Venezuelan president expressed in his Twitter account the determined and firm position of the president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. We are grateful for his solidarity with the peoples of Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela. The countries of this continent deserve to be respected. We will always defend the sovereignty and independence of the peoples. Union. We remain on topic. Cuba's government emphasized that the 9th Summit of the Americas is a forum which promotes exclusion following the policy of no invitation promoted by the United States against several countries in the region. The statements pointed out that the United States abuses its privilege as a host country of the summit to decide earlier to exclude Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. It also stressed that Washington refused to listen to the just demands of several governments in the region to change this discriminatory and unacceptable position. The Cuban government said there was not a single reason to justify the arbitrary exclusion of any country in the hemisphere from this continental event. This policy of exclusion promoted by the U.S. is something that Latin American and Caribbean nations have warned about since the 6th summit held in Cartagena in 2012. The president of Chile, Gabriel Boric, pointed out as a mistake the exclusion of Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela by the government of Joe Biden from the 9th Summit of the Americas. The president said Chile's representation goes to the Summit of the Americas with the conviction that the spaces for multilateral dialogue are those that will allow LATAM nations to build better relations, stressing nobody is going to save himself, but we have to unite to have better developments in our nations. He also emphasized that exclusion is not the way forward and has not worked historically, and when the United States tries to exclude certain countries, in the end, what it does is to enforce and to reinforce the position they have in their own places. Finally, President Boric pointed out that we want to say not only to the United States, because it is the summit of all the states of the Americas, is that we need to work with greater solidarity. We move on to other topics. On Monday, Dominican Environment Minister Orlando Jorge Mera was killed, according to information offered by the Ministry of Environment of that Caribbean nation. According to the tweet of the Ministry of Environment, Mera was shot in his office. The Ministry of Environment has not offered official information about what happened and, in an official note, expressed its dismay at the events that occurred. Jorge Mera, 55 years old, was the son of former President Salvador Jorge Blanco and had been in office since the beginning of the government of President Luis Abinader in August 2020. A recent report by the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, CEPAL, estimates that increase in poverty in the region of more than 33% by the year 2022. The regional agency pointed out that energy and food prices will raise poverty rates to 33.7% and extreme poverty to 14.9%. This will cause more than 7 million people to join the 86.4 million who are already in extreme poverty and suffer from food insecurity. According to ZELAC, the increase in inflation in the region will fundamentally affect access to wealth and public services. And TeleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters. Since more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are being heard in other farther away nations. These parameters are in place since June the 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This new multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In Bolivia, Julian relatives and human rights activists reiterated their demands for justice in the context of the trial of the former de facto president, Yanin Áñez. The trial against Áñez resumed after a 2-hour delay. Prosecution presented a considerable amount of evidence and almost 20 witnesses' statements in the case named as Coup d'État 2, where former Senator Áñez faces charges of unconstitutionally assuming the presidency in November 2019, following the oust of then-President Evo Morales. If found guilty, the former de facto leader could be sentenced to 12 years in prison. In Colombia, the Special Jurisdiction for Peace postponed the hearing of General Luis Montoya on false positives related to the Agua indigenous people. The hearing of retired Major General Luis Montoya Sanchez, scheduled for this Monday, June the 6th, was suspended after the military said he was looking for an attorney. The GEP summoned Montoya to testify this version of the facts in the case that investigates the extrajudicial executions committed against members of the Agua people and other civilians. In this hearing, the GEP will touch on the relevant issue on Case 002, investigating the murders of civilians in Tumaco, Ricaurte, Barbacoas, located in the department of Nariño. In the state of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, support for presidential candidate Luis Inácio Lula da Silva is growing. The results of the survey, published on Monday by the company Prefab Future in the state of Rio de Janeiro, show that 42.4% of those interviewed will support the presidential candidate for the Workers' Party, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, in the polls, a figure higher than reported in previous surveys. According to the poll by the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, the former president is favorite among the young population, and those over 60 years of age, two significant groups in the state's population of more than 17 million inhabitants. Meanwhile, the current head of state, Jair Bolsonaro, reached 33.9% of support. The president of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, will present on Monday a bill to levy a windfall income tax on large companies. The announcement will be made at 5:30 p.m. local time between President Alberto Fernandez and the Minister of Economy, Martín Guzmán. The purpose of the bill is to charge a special tax to all those companies that have an extraordinary profits due to an increase in the international prices derived from the conflict in Ukraine. The Minister of Economy assured that a parameter will be established so that the windfall profits are channeled to the productive reinvestment, and assured that the measure will only affect a small part of the Argentine companies. Now we move on to other topics. The Russian government on Monday expressed its interest in resuming the dialogue with the United States on nuclear weapons, while acknowledging the difficult conditions for reaching an agreement. Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that Moscow is interested in discussing nuclear treaties with Washington due to the changes in the security situation in Europe and the world. In this regard, the head of the press office emphasized that these negotiations are necessary for global stability. However, the official stated that he agreed with the statements made by the U.S. ambassador to Russia, John Sullivan, who at a press conference said that it was unlikely that a conversation on this matter will take place at this time. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. In Cambodia, the ruling People's Party won a victory in local elections held on Sunday. According to the first results announced by the National Electoral Committee, the People's Party won 80% of the local positions in the 1,652 communes of the country. They also informed that the voting counted with a participation of 78% of the electoral roll. The official results will be announced on June 26. In Nigeria, at least 50 people were killed in a Catholic church in the southwest of the country after gunmen opened fire and detonated explosives inside the church. According to government and police authorities, the attack took place on Sunday in the town of Owo during a morning mass in the Catholic Church of St. Francis. The Nigerian authorities have so far not provided a precise balance of the massacre. In response, Pope Francisco issued a statement regretting the death of the faithful, among whom there were also groups of children. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, at least 20 civilians lost their lives after armed attacks attributed to the militia of the Allied Democratic Forces. According to human rights organizations, 8 women and several children were among the victims of the actions, which occurred in the locality of Otomambert, province of Ituri. It was also learned that the attackers shot at local residents and burned some 30 houses, grouped in villages. On several occasions, the authorities have blamed the Allied Democratic Forces for having committed attacks in Uganda. In this regard, a year ago, the Congolese government decreed a state of emergency in the neighboring provinces of North Kivu and Ituri, a measure that grants broad powers to the security forces in order to contain the violence in those areas. The Chinese government wants the United States to comply with President Joe Biden's recent declaration of not supporting Taiwan's independence. At a press conference, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said the U.S. president should keep his word and respect the One China principle and stop inciting forces trying to push for separatism in Taiwan. Zhao Lijian described Washington's claims of allegedly not supporting Taiwan's independence as ambiguous, given that the U.S. insists on maintaining official contacts with Taiwan despite China's rejection. The government of Bolivia reinforces biosecurity measures to face the fifth wave of COVID-19 in the country. The Ministry of Health declared on Sunday the beginning of the fifth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country, after the increase of infected patients for the fourth consecutive week, which reached 24%. The authorities indicated that in this phase, more emphasis will be placed on active epidemiological surveillance, which helped to reduce the coronavirus mortality rate in the country. The National Executive also highlighted the importance of having a National Institute of Health laboratories equipped and trained to detect the different variants of the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus and the acquisition of 22.5 million doses to guarantee vaccination of 100% of the population. In Egypt, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi announced that he will supply 30 million doses of vaccines against COVID-19 to countries in the region. The president made the announcement during the inaugural edition of Africa's Health ExCon. This is a fulfillment of the country's selection as one of the 6 African states to receive the messenger arm, the technology used in the manufacture of vaccines and other drugs needed to tackle many incurable diseases. President al-Sisi also pledged to continue sharing knowledge and expertise with other African states in all sectors. So we have come to the end of this news brief. But before our farewells, we say goodbye with the song Es Nuestra América, It's Our America, performed by Maito Rivera with Alexander José Gil Domínguez, Hijo del Sur, Son of the South, and Aquiles Rengifo, Aquilín, a melody that celebrates our union as a continent. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.
Un canto por la América Unida. Mira, que lo escuchen allá arriba. ¡Vamos! Somos la tierra, somos la arcilla, la esperanza que brota y germina. 500 años nos han pisoteado, aquí seguimos, de aquí no nos vamos. América, 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 lindísimo continente se levanta, pueblo unido que no calla. América, 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 lindísimo continente se levanta, pueblo unido que no calla. Pueblo latino, vamos para adelante, tumbando fronteras, somos gigantes, nadie se rinde, vamos para arriba, esa tierra es tuya y también es mía. Pueblo mestizo, guerrero y solidario, aquí nadie es extraño, aquí somos hermanos. Todos los países digan presente, Venezuela y Cuba presente, Nicaragua, Honduras presente, el Caribe entero. América, 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 un continente se levanta, un pueblo unido que no calla, no se detiene. América, América, un continente se levanta, un pueblo unido que no calla.
Soy Tupacatari, soy hueca impuro, 5 siglos resistiendo el atropello y el abuso. El apia ya la reflorece junto al alba, sigue un solo continente porque rayos nos separan. Con Sucre y Bolívar seguimos pa'lante, pa' encima latino, no hay visa que nos pare.
Desde la Patagonia